Hello, Path of Exile gamers. Welcome to another no passive video. Today, I'll be doing a guide on how to play no passives and how to overcome its challenges. In the background, you'll see some shadow gameplay featuring mines and traps. It is something I've been wanting to test out, so I decided to make another character to test it. Ideally, I'd like to make one of each character and see its strengths and weaknesses going forward, so I can make more informed decisions on future characters. So, let's talk about why you would play no passives. No passives is very slow, you're very squishy, your damage is low, and mobs are very threatening. You would enjoy playing no passives if you enjoy really engaging with mobs, mob affixes, mob types, if you enjoy using your terrain, using rocks, doorways, and if you enjoy getting a lot of loot that matters. You will not be leaving most of your loot on the ground. A lot of blue and rare items are very good for you, and you can take in a wide variety of stats to help your character because you're sort of missing everything. So even something like stun and block recovery becomes pretty good. So if that sounds appealing to you and you enjoy a nice slow gameplay that tends to be pretty grindy, no passives is a good way to go. Your main challenges for no passives will be having attributes to put on your gear, because a lot of your attributes come from your passive tree, having life or energy shield to actually live anything, and being able to do the damage to kill the mobs. Attributes are generally solved with gear. A lot of it comes from your rings and your amulet. Life will come from gear, and I highly recommend having a lot of strength, which we'll talk about later. And the damage comes from your support gems. Your skills themselves also do an okay amount of damage, but the support gems tend to really carry everything. For no passives, especially if it's your first run, I would recommend starting Scion. The reason you start Scion, actually go pretty deep. There are a lot of reasons. One reason is her 20-20-20 attribute split. This makes it very flexible, especially in the early game, to use different equipment and use different gems. Something you'll notice, especially as you get into late game, is you'll always want a little bit of everything. Even if you're a strength int character, you might want precision. You might want some kind of other dex skill. Maybe something like Temporal Rift that requires dex and int. So you'll always want a little bit of everything, and having 20-20-20 really makes you flexible for that. Whereas if one of your stats started at 14, it would make it a little bit harder, because for those off attributes, you're generally using items that have all attributes to them. So starting at 20, you'll have much more value from that all attributes than other characters would. The second reason is you get Spectral Throw and Decoy Totem, which are very, very good for clearing. With no farming, you should be able to take Spectral Throw and Decoy Totem from the start all the way to Act 5, maybe clear Act 5, and then fall off in Act 6 where you realize you'll get stuck. But it is very powerful. All you need is a good weapon, and especially with the Allflame League, it's very easy to do that. You have a lot of essences, you can put them in the Vesper, and just craft yourself good weapons, and that will carry you. You also get access to Precision, Vitality, Clarity, whichever one you'd like. Generally, we recommend Precision, because you don't really know where you're going to go with your build, and it is good for Spectral Throw, and it is good for other things, but you can also go Vitality. Clarity, I really don't recommend all that much. It's something you can pick up later if you'd like, with the Uncarved Gemstones, but Precision, Vitality are usually good choices. I personally like dual wielding. I think dual wielding with Spectral Throw is very good, mainly because Weaver is the first tough boss you'll fight, especially if your damage is lower, and I found with a two-hander it's a little bit more difficult to do. Though Decoy Totem does actually work properly now in the Allflame League. It used to have a very hard time taunting bosses, so maybe you'll find that a two-hander works okay. Something that you're going to be doing in the early game is, like I said, spamming essences on your weapons, looking for really nice, rare weapons. Weapons are really high prio. The other thing you're looking for is attributes on gear and any rings. Rings are always good because you can put essences on them, you can alch them, you can transmute them, do it all through the Vesper. Look for attributes. Even if you don't need it right now, you will randomly find a point where, oh, I need 20 strength. Oh, I have a helmet of 20 strength. And you just take out that helmet, or 10 strength, or 5, or whatever. Keep your attribute gear in your stash. I have 2 stash tabs that are always Stats 1, Stats 2, and all my attribute things go there because you never know. You will just randomly need it. As you're going through Act 2, we're going to take a Lyra for a Bandit reward. Res can be difficult later on, and something you'll find is that things that make it easy to gear are really high priority. So these are things like having all res from a Lyra. These are things like having all attributes on your rings, things that help you out that way. Things like having a heavy belt. Heavy belt is super important just to make everything flow nice and easy. So would really recommend that because especially once you kill Katava, it can be very difficult to put your gear together. In the mid game, or in Act 3, what you're looking to do is go and kill Piety. That should be pretty easy, just with Spectral Throw, Decoy Totem, and a good weapon. Keep in mind that something you're really looking for, and especially if you go with the recommended path that I'll be recommending later, look for a weapon that has 2 to 3 elements of damage. Ideally something like added fire, added cold, added lightning, and you'd be looking for 2 to 3 of those. That helps do a lot more damage than improved physical, just because those numbers scale a lot higher, and you really like flat numbers. Flat damage is really strong in this run, and percent it can be good, especially later, but I found during the campaign it's very important to just have a lot of flat elemental damage. Once you kill Piety, you have a choice of either doing a Zaro or Lab, or you can continue and kill Dominus, get to Act 4, and then go back and do Lab if you don't feel strong enough. I would say if you feel strong, you should go and start grinding Lab right away. You'll be grinding Lab for a while. Lab gives you access to support gems and regular gems, as well as some uniques that you'll find in there, and maybe a Grand Spectrum or 2. You never know. When you're in Lab, I recommend doing all the side objectives. Dark Shrines are ones you can skip. If you come across them, you should do them. Mainly for the rare that spawns inside, to be honest. I don't find the Dark Shrine effects themselves that powerful. Getting an extra key is good. Maybe you can get an extra roll of the font, but I wouldn't go out of my way for it. But getting the troves, the lock boxes, those are really good. At the end of your lab, you should try to have 50% all res, somewhere about 700 to 800 HP, and about 45% armor. And that should take you pretty comfortably through to Act 6. And then there, you'll have to work things out. The recommended skills rather, I would suggest are using animated weapons of self-reflection with added chaos or added cold, hypothermia, minion speed, culling strike, some mix of the two, or some mix of all those. Added cold and hypothermia is really good. If you have a lot of cold damage on your weapon, you can just run hypothermia, which I think is what we ended up doing on the first witch that we ran. Minion speed is really good. You can use minion damage, but you find your swords are a little squishy at the start. And Culling Strike is just incredible. It is an execute and also just gives you damage. It's very strong. Added Chaos is also really good, and if you decide to transition into another build, Added Chaos pretty much goes into anything. The other build that you could use if you are not interested in running animated weapons of self-reflection is you can run Spellslinger, or you can continue running Spectral Throw. Spellslinger with Firestorm Meteors, Armageddon Brand of Volatility, or you can run it with Essence Drain of Desperation, you can run it with Creeping Flows, you can run it with, what was another one? Cold Snap is okay, but generally that type of build does better later, particularly around Acts 8, 9, 10, when you just have the levels in your gems, and it tends to be a little bit weaker early. I will say that on this character, the Scion that I ran through on the Allflame League, we went through SRS as our choice instead of animated weapons, and it's because we found the Mark of the Red Covenant helmet that gives 235%, I believe, extra damage to your Raging Spirits, and we decided to focus on that. One thing with these runs is that if you find a piece of gear, or you find a unique, that you can really pivot towards and have that carry you for a while, that is generally a good idea. Having these resources drop for you that influence your build in a way a passive tree would is very strong, so keep a lookout for uniques or support gems that you could pivot towards and play around. Each one of these builds has its own issues. Animated weapons falls off a little bit in the late game. It is also not very reliable in terms of hitting priority targets, and it has issues with some AoE. However, if they are not dying and you're able to get good time on the boss and you don't really care what it's hitting, animated weapons is really strong. You can support it by throwing out essence drains as well once you have all your swords summoned, or you could use any curse to help them, especially if you're running something like hypothermia, or you're running something like added cold. In the late game, what you're going to find is that animated weapons fall off. So we're talking Act 8, 9, 10, mainly 9 and 10. Animated weapons tend to fall off. If you do have a Giga Sword and you have great supports for them, they can still be really strong, but you might have some issues in some bosses, especially when it comes to targeting. Spellslinger tends to become very good around here, using Essence Drain of Desperation. We used Ice Spear of Splitting, and we used Creeping Flows. That was the setup that I found really good success with on my witch, though in the end we found a really strong set of gear, and we found a Lion Sword that was really strong, so we went back to animated weapons to kill Katava. In the end game, you're looking to hit Act 10, and then you can either grind Voyages or the Ossuary. You're looking to have high armor, capped res, a lot of HP, and if you're playing animated weapons, I strongly recommend a Lion Sword. Lion Sword has 50 strength, 50 dex as it's implicit, and it makes gearing a lot easier, so I would definitely recommend you do that. On my current Scion, we're doing around level 65 Voyages, maybe looking to go on the map soon, but Voyages seem pretty strong for this character right now, so that's what I'm doing. We're currently using Kinetic Rain with Kinetic Instability and added Chaos damage, and then we have a Spellslinger set up with Armageddon Brand of Volatility and Firestorm of Meteors. Currently this is doing about 15.5k DPS, which I'm sure sounds low to a lot of PoE players that are doing 123k at level 20 in Act 2, but 15.5 feels pretty good. There are some mobs that are a little annoying, and our mana pool is kind of tight, but I think it's really enjoyable, and I would say that the speed that we're killing mobs is pretty good. It feels nice. We have about 1800 HP when you include ES, and we have about 23% armor, which is pretty low. So the armor is definitely something we'd be looking to bump up. And then there are a lot of ways to go up in DPS, either from getting skill gem levels, because we still have a lot of those to go, for linking our Spellslinger and our Kinetic Rain is also another way for us to get a lot of damage. And I'm sure there's a lot of gear that we could find. I mean, we could definitely use a new wand, that's for sure. There'll be some gameplay in the background that'll at some point swap to the Scion, so that way you could see what it looks like and what the speed is. But that's pretty much a good starter guide for how to play no passives. If you have any questions, or if you want me to make a follow-up video, or if you want me to talk about mines and traps once that's done, just let me know. And I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.